you can take bets on what's going to go wrong. Whenever I go live, there's always something. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. We are making our shorts today. So this is the easy beginner lounge shorts sew along. And if you're watching the replay, let me just get the comments there so I can see. Okay. If you are watching the replay, thank you. And if you're watching live, thank you. And today we are sewing these shorts from start to finish. So the pattern I have that I've printed is actually a kid's size pattern, just because it's easier for you to see everything I do when I work on a kid's size. The pattern, the free pattern, is the adult lady size. So the adult lady size pattern is the free pattern. And then inside the Creative Sewing Club, you will find the kid size. It's from 1 year to 14 years. And you'll also find the long pants version, the longer version. So this is a pair I made for my almost 3-year-old last year. I put little elastics in the bottom because their pajama pants like end up at their knees when they're sleeping, right? So I made these out of flannel, but I wanted to show you what they look like. These are all around. There we go. Like that. Cute little ears. And the elastic at the top is it's been stitched in, sewn in. I attached it using my overlocker or serger, if that's what you call yours. But I'll show you how to do it with the sewing machine, because you can do everything on your normal sewing machine. And it's just folded over at the top. So it doesn't have a separate waistband. That's why the pattern is just one pattern piece, which makes it so great for beginners. And another feature is it doesn't have a side seam on the side. So it only has the seam on the inside of the leg, and it's got the seam at the crotch, but it doesn't have a side seam. So essentially it just gets folded like that, your pattern. Because it doesn't have a side seam, it doesn't have pockets. Okay, so as soon as you want hip pockets, then you've got a side seam, right? I am going to show you how to make these start to finish. I haven't even cut mine out because I want to show you how I cut it. And I'd love to see if you make one. And we're going to make these. These I'm making the shorts version, so I'm not making the long pants. But if you are in the Creative Sewing Club, you can easily make these, the longer ones, and just add the elastic in the bottom, same way that I've done it for the top. You can see these have been really well worn. She loves them. But they're a bit small for her now. So I am going to switch my camera down. I like to show you only my hands when we're doing this, just because you get to focus then, and I get to show you some details. So this is the fabric I'm using. If you're starting out, this is your first time sewing clothes at all, I really cannot recommend a cotton fabric, enough cotton or flannel, an old sheet, old duvet cover, whatever you've got lying around, as long as it's a sturdy fabric, because it's going to make it easier to sew. Now, when it comes to cutting your pattern, this pattern piece says cut 2 mirror images. I'll just put it on big right there so you can see it easily. But you need to cut 2 mirror images. What that means is you want one pattern piece looking like this and one looking like that. So if this pattern piece looks the same on both sides to you, don't worry, it happens. This is how it goes, but you'll get used to it eventually. But the side with a slightly longer curve, it's marked on the pattern, but the side with a little bit of a longer curve, that's the back. Because it goes over the bigger curve of your body, it goes over your bum. And then the side with the smaller curve, that's the front. So this is going to be one whole leg piece of the pattern. If I fold it in half, you can see it kind of looks like a pants over there. Okay, looks like a pant leg. And that's why you need 2 mirror images, one like this and one like that. Now, I don't recommend cutting your pattern pieces one at a time, because the chances of getting confused are just too high. Another thing I don't recommend is using a plain fabric unless you very clearly mark the right side of the fabric, because it's just way too easy to accidentally make two left legs or two right legs. So what I like to do is to fold my fabric, and the tip here, you're going to, well, not a tip really, just something that people actually ask sometimes, and someone might have this question and feel like it's a silly question to ask. It doesn't matter which way around you fold your fabric. My dog agrees in the background, okay? It doesn't matter which way around you fold your fabric. You can fold your fabric with the wrong sides together, wrong sides, the ugly sides or the inside, like this. Or you can fold your fabric with the pretty sides together like that. It doesn't matter. It's going to give you two mirror images. Another thing to consider is you've got the grain line arrow on the pattern. There. You want this grain line to be in the right direction, in the same direction as your pattern. And the reason for that is the grain line is the strongest thread in the fabric. And because it's stronger, it's like slightly heavier. And what does gravity do? It pulls it down. So if your grain line's going like this, then your clothes are going to be like pulling and going crooked, in a nutshell. So stick to grain line. I have got fabric with like a gingham check print, which means I want the lines to be relatively straight. And let me just see what's best to fold this fabric. I got such a huge piece of this. Let's keep it really simple over here. And I always check the grain line. I can see the grain line is that one because it doesn't shift as much. Do you see that? This one like kind of stretches. That one doesn't. So that's my grain line. So I want my pattern piece to lay like this with the arrow pointing down or up. Doesn't matter. Check the direction of your print if you have a directional print. So if you have strawberries and they're all going in one direction, you don't want upside down strawberry pants, right? I'm just folding the fabric. I'm not cutting against the fold. I'm going to cut right around my pattern piece. Does it fit on here? No, not yet. Now the question is, how worried am I about wasting that little bit there, right? And before I cut, I'm going to just show you something about the elastic. I need a pattern weight here. There we go, water bottle. Everything's a pattern weight when you sew. Okay. Two things about this pattern. First, the elastic at the top is folded over from the pattern fabric itself. It's about 1 inch wide. There. Now the elastic I have is wider because I've run out of this 1 inch, almost 1 inch elastic. So you can see it's been folded over on the inside. I've run out of it. So I only have a wider elastic. Now another thing, my daughter has, I don't want to be technical about this. So let's make it in like plain, how you'd explain it if you're telling me about fitting problems. Whichever pants she wears, they pull down at the back because she's got a nice round little derriere, okay? They pull down in the back. And they're okay usually in the front, but she has a longer rise. That's what we call it. So her pants need to be a little bit longer at the top. Don't get stressed about this if I'm speaking Greek now. All this comes down to is because I have a wider elastic that I'm using and because she needs that bit of a higher rise, I'm actually going to cut my pattern just a little bit higher at the top. This part here is the top. So I'm not going to, I'm not keeping it folded like that. I'm just going to cut it along this line, the same line, slightly higher. And if you're not sure why, because this is how thick my elastic is. And as you can see, it's a bit bigger than that. You see, it's too thick. And because I need her to have just like a slightly higher, so let's put it under, you can see, a little bit higher, okay? but in line with the pattern line. So this is something I want to show you. If this is something you have a hard time with, or you want it to be lower or you want it to be higher, on a pattern like this, you can really just lengthen it up. Equally on each side, because you can see this line is not a straight line. It's kind of diagonal. Same thing at the bottom. If you want it longer, you want long straight pants, just lengthen this line down. You can even lengthen it down straight. You'll have wide legs. Okay. Lengthen it down to where you want, or lengthen it if you want slightly longer shorts. It's up to you. Excuse me. So let's get to cutting. I need pins. I just realized I don't have any. Got it. Okay. So I've got my fabric folded. It's folded in half. Not in half, it's just folded. I'm not cutting on the fold. On the fold is like that, with your pattern piece against the fold. I don't need to cut this on the fold. Why? Because then I only have like one pattern piece, okay? 2 mirror images. So I have to cut through the fold. So I'll just put it there. Let's not waste. I like to cut as close to the edges of my fabric as possible, because I don't use my scraps as I should, I suppose, or as the social media sewing community says you should. I don't. I have a black bag, trash bag of scraps over here, and I just donate them, like to a dog shelter or something. So I try not to make too many scraps because I know I'm not going to use them. I'm pinning the pattern. You can use pattern weights. With a woven fabric, so not stretchy fabric, I like to pin the pattern. I used to hate it. Now I just consider it just part of the process. That's what you do. Oh, that's a good long pin. Where did I get that? Wow. I'm eyeing my long pin because I want to reupholster my couch and I need pins for that. Okay. Cutting, but as I mentioned, I want it slightly higher at the top. So I'm going to cut in line with my top edge, just because if you've just joined us, I'm cutting the rise. We call that the rise, like mid-rise, low-rise. You've heard those for jeans. I'm cutting the rise slightly higher because the kid I'm sewing this for needs a slightly higher rise on her pants. And the seam allowance is already included, so I don't have to add anything. And I find if you're new at cutting, if you just lift it slightly, this is why pins help. You lift it slightly, you can really get in there in those little curves. And use something to weigh your fabric down if you're not cutting on the floor, because as you loosen the fabric up, it will actually start falling off the table, which is super annoying. None of that drawing your pattern onto fabric or anything. I've never done that. That's the way you do it, then do it. But I just have never. Oh, my machine's in the way here. I usually use rotary cutters, but I don't have my cutting mat out. Okay, I need to really just eye this. So I'm actually going to use a ruler because it's a straight line and just lengthen it up. Just that little bit should be fine. Redesigning on the fly, they call this. Okay, just so I can see, and I'm cutting a straight line. Okay, and I need to get rid of that little bit there, and then we're ready to sew. Yay! You see that? I suppose suppose would be a good scrap to save. Onto the floor it goes. Okay, we are ready to start sewing. This is a really easy sew. You are going to stitch. You've got 2 lines of stitching and then hemming and the elastic. It is really quick, very easy. Don't be intimidated by it. If you can stitch a line, you can make these. So let's get the sewing machine closer. You will need your iron for this, by the way. You need your iron for everything in sewing. Don't believe anyone who tells you you don't. And the sewing machine, there she is. Okay, I need to change the bobbin here. Got the wrong colors going. Oops. How did that happen? I haven't sewn this whole week. And it's Friday today. Can't believe it. Last week I had such a good streak. I did 20 minutes of sewing every day. And I actually made pajamas and things. This week it's just not happening. Okay, when you're sewing a woven fabric, that's a not stretchy fabric, you need to remember that your seams will fray. Your fabric is going to fray, it's going to unravel. So you need to finish off your seam allowances. And on your normal sewing machine, you can just use a zigzag stitch. The zigzag stitch literally looks like a zigzag. Did I use it on this one? I used the overlock stitch on this one. Okay, so on this one, if you've got a serger or an overlocker, I think you can see, oh, it's in the sun. It's that time of year. If you've been with me a while, you know we have that time where the sun just keeps coming in. Okay, so the stitches run down there and then up there. There's the overlock stitch. Yes, it's rainbows on one side. You need to finish off that seam allowance, that edge, or your fabric is going to unravel. It may not seem like a lot while you are working with it. Trust me when I say as this thing goes through the wash, because you want to be able to wash your clothes, it is going to unravel something awful. So definitely finish off your seams. Zigzag stitch is super easy to do. And most machines have it. Mine is that one over there, number 6. In the sun. Here we go. Number 6, that's the one I'll use. And then for the elastic, I'll use that one. Number 8, it's called a serpentine stitch. I'll show you exactly how we do that. It's super easy. And let's get started. So we're starting by creating our pant legs. Now you'll find different ways of sewing this style of pants or even leggings. Leggings have the same pattern pieces and the same method. So congratulations, once you've made these, you can make leggings too, or like bell bottoms, anything without a side seam. Same method. I'm going to remove my pattern piece. The way I like to do it is to stitch the leg seam first. That's this one over here, this inner leg. I like sewing that first. Some people like to sew the crotch curve first and then fold it and sew the leg seam around. I don't like that because I feel like the crotch curve doesn't come out as smoothly. So to sew the leg seams, all you're going to do is take these short straight edges, fold them in like that, and stitch them together. But before you do that, we're going to make hemming these little shorts the easiest thing in the world. So even before I start sewing the side seams, I'm going to press the area where I'm going to hem. I'm just going to iron it, and we'll call that memory press. That's what I call it, memory press the hem. There's this little guy on. It's on. Whoops. I was over eager there. Okay. I'm just flattening it out first. And you're not going to stitch the hem. You're just going to press it up. And don't take your pattern pieces apart. If you've already done that, don't worry, you can just put them back together. And the reason I say that, just fold your bottom edge up of your one, because your hem goes to the inside, right? So when you're folding the second hem, it's exactly the same length. So for these shorts, to hem these shorts, you're going to fold the first bottom edge to the inside just by a little bit. That's about, what is that? That's about 3/8 of an inch or a centimeter. Now look at how easy this is using the fabric with a gingham pattern. I can follow the line. So if you'll be buying fabric, a check or a gingham is actually quite helpful to use for something like this. So first pressing it up by just a little bit, just to get rid of that raw edge over there. And then you're pressing your actual hem up, which is, you'll see I'm not measuring because I've done this so many times. I've got 3 kids, so I've made a million pairs of pajamas. How much is that? That's like a 1/2 inch. Okay. How much is 1/2 inch? Like just over a centimeter. Of course, you can wait until you've tried them on before you hem these. I just find having the line just ironed in, not stitched, just pressed down, it makes hemming so much easier, especially if you're new and this can be frustrating. So I've got my hem pressed in, fold that back down and flip it over. And now you can easily match the length of the two. So doing the same thing again, folding this bottom edge up just by about 3/8 of an inch. If it's even that much. And then going, whoops, the rest of the way. So now I just fold it over this other edge like that. I'm not going to stitch it in there just to get the line in so that I've got the same length. Little ways I like to make sewing easier, the annoying parts. As soon as you make not annoying, but frustrating, it can be frustrating. As soon as you make those a bit easier, then sewing becomes a breeze. Okay, now if you're worried about how we're going to stitch this, we are as simple as unfolding it. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to just unfold it all. You've got your lines ironed in there. You can see them. Look there. You can see them very clearly. This is where having this kind of fabric is very helpful. And now we get to stitch our inseams. So I'm going to fold my pattern piece and start by matching the corners there at the crotch curve, that corner. Start by matching those and match it all the way down and fold that hem. Match it all the way down. I did a bit of crooked cutting there, as you can see. I'm trying to get this out of the sun. Hang on. Shift it up just a little bit there. Okay. So that's okay. I'll just fold that back into the hem once I'm done. And now we can sew. Let's do the other one. If your fabric is the same on the front and back, please check that you have 2 opposites, 2 mirror images of each other, a right leg and a left leg. Don't worry which is which. You just need 2 opposite looking legs. And I'll show you. So before you start sewing, you can see I've got 2 and they're opposites. Okay, we're going to stitch that first with a straight stitch, just a normal straight stitch on our seam allowance. Seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch, and then I will zigzag the edge to finish off the raw edge. And I like to start at the top and sew all the way down and do the same on both leg pieces. This is just kind of a best practice in sewing, to sew parts in the same direction in case anything stretches out as you sew. Okay, first one is done. Next one. I can hear my machine needs a good clean and oil. I'll do that right after this. Okay, I've got my two opposites. Now I want to finish the raw edge, and I'm going to set my machine to a zigzag stitch. Your machine should have a zigzag stitch. Most of them do. And I'm going to zigzag. I like to zigzag, not necessarily on the edge of the fabric. I like to zigzag closer to the stitches and then cut that excess off. But if you've got really long seams, that can feel a bit annoying. So it's okay if you want to go close to the edge. I just like how neat it looks, and I'll show you the difference. So the first one, I'll stitch close to the stitches and then trim the excess. Show you in a moment. And the next one I'm going to stitch closer to the edge. And this, I mean, it really doesn't matter. No one's wearing their clothes inside out. We're not pedantic about perfection here. Okay. So one of these. So this one, I've stitched my zigzag. There we go. Let me do it that way. Close to the edge there. You can see. Focusing, it is. My laptop's quite far away from me, so I can't see. And this one I've stitched a little further from the edge. And I'm just going to trim that excess off. And I just prefer that. Personal preference. Okay. We've done, excuse me, our two pant legs. Next, we want to sew the crotch curve. So to do that, we've got to get these two curves attached to each other. And the easiest way, well, the only way, turn one pant leg right way out. Oh, we've got to press these seams. Hang on. I'll just do it like this. Really want to press those seams that you've just stitched. I press just a little bit away from that folded hem because I don't want to ruin all my hard work folding the hem. And when you press the seams, you don't only neaten it up, but you also set the stitches. So anything that's kind of stretched out a little bit will shrink back. Just helps your sewing to match up, line up, look neat. Okay, you want one pant leg wrong way out, like that. And you want one right way out, like that. Now, when you're sewing clothes, you're always sewing wrong sides together, right sides together, wrong way out. So you want the right sides to match, and you're going to put one pant leg inside the other. Okay, and you want these to start lining up, these seams that you've just stitched. So the way to do that, so this is what it looks like. You've got the one pant leg inside the other, and check, fold it open, and check on the inside. Let me move, sorry. I'm looking at the screen and the sun. Okay, let's move slightly. Good bin of fabric here underneath the table. Okay, that's better. Right, gonna open it up and match those seams on each other on the outside. Don't look at the inside. You want the outside lines to match. And you can pin them together. And now everything should line up. Your curve should line up. Look at that. It's all lined up. There you go. And you're going to stitch around this curve now. Start at whichever one feels natural to you. Doesn't matter, but you're going to just start at the top and stitch all the way around. And if your pants tend to unravel here in the center at the crotch curve or over the back, you can do a back stitch on your machine there, or you can stitch it twice if you want. Up to you. I'll just stitch it once using a normal straight stitch, and then I'll finish off the edge with a zigzag again. When you get to this curve, go slowly. If you need to pivot, move, lift your presser foot a little bit and then move the fabric. And if it's tricky to move the fabric, remember we move our fabric from the front of the machine. You can't move fabric when it's already in there. So you've got to move it over here. You've got to anticipate. I need a second camera. You've got to anticipate that you've got to move it. So you've got to do it over here already. It's like driving. You've got to anticipate the bend. Okay, curve is done. You're going to be amazed at just how quick this is. Now I need to finish that edge. So back onto the zigzag stitch. And I'll just do a really quick one. All around again. Okay, there we are. Oh, this summer cold will not leave me. Okay, so I've got my zigzag done. There it is. Look at that. Your crotch curve has been stitched. It needs, surprise, it needs to be pressed. But while I'm here, while everything is all topsy-turvy, I just want to re-press that tiny piece of my hem. No, it seems fine. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to turn this out because now we are going to put the elastic in and then we're going to hem. Turn it out, all straight out. Look, it's looking like shorts already. There we go. There's the top. Okay, we need to press this. So again, your iron is the star of the show here. And we're going to use it in a moment again. Just give it a good press around this curve. You could have done it while it was inside out too, but I was of course eager to turn it out. Okay. Our hem is still pretty well marked there. That's okay. But now we want to do the elastic at the top. So now comes the elastic. The elastic goes in the top here. You can see it's quite wide, the top opening, compared to what it should be. So this is the size the elastic should be. And I've made one size bigger, so this needs to be a little bit bigger than that. I'm going to eyeball it because I know she just needs that little bit bigger size pants now. These kids grow so fast. I'm also going to put a label in. So for my kids, I don't have fancy labels. I have different colored ribbon. So she's got the green and like orange ribbon. She knows it's hers. And it's just a little ribbon with a heart on that I found randomly. And I keep them in these boxes. So I've got pink and purple, and then I've got blue. And they know whose is whose. Where's her ribbon is the question. There it is. And I just cut them. And I'm going to show you how I do that too. So for the elastic, I'm going to show you how to stitch the elastic onto the fabric. You don't have to do it this way. You can make a casing and thread the elastic through. I like to make a casing because I can adjust the elastic. But stitching it on is maybe a good skill to have. So, well, let's think about it. The thing with a casing is you can adjust the elastic if it's too big or too small. So let's do that. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to use this as my prototype to measure the elastic. You need to measure this around your own waist. And it needs to be snug. Think about, can you put this on and take it off? So she definitely needs it a bit wider, kind of like that. And it's such a tight piece of elastic. It should be fine. That'll be fine. So the elastic is naturally going to be smaller than the top of the pants. Let me show you how to stitch it on because I think that's the fastest way. So when you stitch your elastic on, you want to use a zigzag stitch, a wide zigzag stitch. And you need to start by dividing your elastic. So take the elastic, fold it in half, and mark the center with something. Remember, this elastic is going to be inside the fabric. So if you need to use a Sharpie, you use a Sharpie. I've done it many times. You mark the center of the elastic. Then fold the ends in towards the center and mark those quarter marks. Okay. That center point over there, this way, center point is going to be attached at the front of the short. So the back is slightly higher than the front. There you can see there's just a little gap in the fabric when the legs at the bottom are lined up. The back is slightly higher than the front. So on the inside, I'm going to pin that. And my recommendation with this type of an elastic, sewing it in, is to use pins because it can jump out if you use clips. So I'm lining it up to the seam in the front, okay? Next, I want to line these points up with this side. So if your shorts are laying flat, those side seams, and I find it easier to make like a tiny little clip in there. You can mark it with some other fabric marker too. It's up to you. Just because it doesn't have a side seam. If this was something with a side seam, then you can see the little gap. If it's something with a side seam, then it's easy to match it up. So remember, this elastic is going to be stretched. Daisy. My dog is so old and deaf. So she's barking at something that was here probably an hour ago now. Okay, so you'll see the elastic is shorter than the top of the shorts. You're going to stretch the elastic as you're sewing and it'll pull those shorts in. So line up Okay. And now, some people like to join the elastic first. Actually, I'm going to do that. And then you match it up at the back. So to join your elastic, it's okay if this is already done. Just overlap it slightly and use your zigzag stitch again and just stitch across the elastic. Just check that nothing is twisted, okay? And you're going to stitch across your elastic. I'm not doing a million stitches here, just a basic. And now I can actually show you what this triple zigzag or tricot stitch or serpentine stitch looks like. There, you can see it's like a dotted zigzag stitch. It has the 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, 3 down. And it just holds the elastic better. It's used for elastic in swimming costumes, swimwear, things like that. Okay. So I've got the elastic in the shorts. I'm going to have to pull it to attach it because the shorts at the top are wider. And to attach this elastic, you're sewing right on the edge. Move slightly, and I think you'll be able to. Okay, now you can see that better. And what I want to show you is when you're stitching this, you're stitching on the edge of the fabric and the edge of the elastic, right? You want a nice wide zigzag. It needs to hold that fabric, but it's also preventing your fabric from unraveling. Sometimes you'll see instructions have you first fold that top edge in. I'm not going to do that now because I'm going to stitch the elastic down again. And then when you're pulling the elastic through, you need to stretch the elastic as you're sewing, which to me, it's easier to have the elastic at the bottom and the fabric at the top. And I actually hold my fabric behind the machine because the moment you start pulling this, it's very possible to pull your machine towards you, and that's super frustrating. So you'll notice that I'm going to hold my fabric at the back. I'm not pulling it, I'm holding it so it doesn't pull the machine towards me. So your fabric and your elastic is lined up at the top. Do a test stitch of your zigzag if you're not sure how wide it is, because you want it to catch only that width. And I've dropped the needle in just so that I can already start stretching this out. And let me show you what happens if I stretch this. There we go. Stretching the fabric without holding it at the back. So I like to just hold it there and start stitching. I want a slightly longer stitch length. And you can see there it's starting to gather up. And you're just pulling it until the elastic is straight. You're straightening out the elastic as you go. Okay, first bit's done. That's probably the hardest thing you've had to do so far in this tutorial. Okay, the elastic is in the top. There, that's what it looks like. Show you the stitches on the inside. It's actually good that I'm using a dark elastic here. You can see. Now we need to fold it over. That's as simple as that. So you're just folding it over. Now keep in mind, obviously everything is now gathered. So when you're sewing, you're going to top stitch, and I'll show you where to top stitch, but when you're top stitching, you're going to stretch it out again. So again, just fold it down. I like to put pins in just to keep it straight, because this is where elastic can go crooked. So fold it on where the seam line is, fold it to the inside and check that your seam line's aligning. This is also where I slip my label in for the kids. That way they also know what the back is. I'll just put the label in the back. And I simply fold it. Fold it in half. And I slip it between the elastic and the fabric. Just pin that down. And as I'm top stitching the elastic down, then I will catch the label. Easy as that. So same on the sides. We want it to be straight on the outside. And I'll show you what I mean by that as we're sewing. Folding it all in. Okay. Now as you're sewing, now this is all bunching up here, right? This is with the elastic folded in. We don't want that bunching to be stitched down. So as you're sewing, again, you're pulling the elastic straight as you sew. You're using the same zigzag stitch. And where you are sewing is you want to catch this edge of the elastic on the inside. So you can definitely stitch this on the inside. Important, this is why I've pinned it. When you're sewing, you don't want your fabric to move up. So there's a bunch of fabric at the top and your elastic is over there. You're going to have crooked shorts there. So you want your elastic to be right up against the fold here at the top. And I am actually going to turn these inside out and stitch on the inside. Just find it easier. And as you're sewing, keep your elastic pushed up against that fold at the top. And you're stretching it out again, pulling it straight as you sew. I did not stitch over a pin. If you see the pin over there, I went past it. Elastic is done. Looks good. I regret only having black elastic, but okay. That's what it looks like. And that's what it looks like on the outside. Let's turn these out. And we are ready to hem, and then you're done. Good job. Oh, cute. Those are cute. She's going to love these. Now to get her to wear them only as pajamas. That's the thing. But when you're a kid, everything's pajamas. Am I right? Pajamas, clothes, who cares? Okay. I'm just double checking my hem that I've already ironed in. I want it nice and even. I just want to check that it's still folding over, and I'm going to use some of these little clips to hold them in place. And this is where having ironed it before makes it so much easier, because ironing these tiny little Circumference hems can drive you crazy. Okay, there we go. Right. I've clipped the hem. I'll just use these clips to hold it in place. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And then we can sew the hem. You only need a straight stitch for this hem. If you want to be fancy, you can go for a blind stitch. I never use that. I never say never, but I have just never had a need for it yet. My clothes aren't fancy enough for blind hems. If you're wondering what a blind hem is, it's the kind they use on dress pants. So you only see like a little dot on the outside. Okay. Hems are ready. I'm going to stitch on the outside of them using a straight stitch. For hems, I like to lengthen my stitch length just a little bit, but that's personal preference. And then important, check the width of your hem on the inside. You don't want to sew too close to this outside fold because then your hem starts to flip out like this after a few washes. You want to sew as close to the inside fold as possible. So you can stitch on the outside, but you run the risk of having a hem that has folds in it on the outside. So if you stitch there on the inside, close to the fold, you always risk your fabric bunching on the back. If it bunches a little bit on the inside, it's not a train smash. We're not freaking out about it, right? But on the outside, you're going to feel annoyed. So I like to stitch on the outside, just keeping in mind how wide my hem is over here. And this one is about, let me check on my machine how wide this is. 5/8 of an inch. It's good when the baby shorts can fit over the free arm of the machine. It makes hemming easier. The free arm is this loose piece. So if you take that little front cover off. And I've got my straight stitch and I'm just going to stitch right around and keeping an eye on my fabric. I want it to be smooth. I don't want it bunching. So you may need to go slow. And you may need to here and there readjust your fabric slightly. You heard my machine protesting us because it needs oil and it needs a new needle. Don't tell the sewing police I didn't change my needle for this project. There we go. Perfect little hem. Okay, last one. I hope you've done this. I hope you've sewn along with me. Really love to see. I'm done. Oh, cute. She's going to be happy. There we go. All done. Let me show my face again. I'm still here. Hello. Okay, they're done. Look at that. How cute. Those are super cute. If you want to make all the sizes, the kids' patterns, and you want a whole bunch of sewing patterns and a whole bunch of projects, and you're not in the Creative Sewing Club yet, come and join us. The link is in the bottom of this video, in the description. There we go. And you'll find patterns like these and sew-alongs like these and all sorts of things. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. Thanks. Come and show off your shorts when you've made them. Can't wait to see. And I hope you've had a good time. I hope you've learned something. And I'll see you at the next sew-along.